Welcome to this very first episode of the Sports Time Traveler podcast. Hi, my name is Len Furman. I'm the Sports Time Traveler, and I'd like to start out by sharing with you exactly what is the Sports Time Traveler. It's a sports history newsletter and podcast. The premise is that I travel back in time virtually to cover sporting events from the past as if they were happening now. I mainly cover events from exactly 50 years ago. I do this by reading the sports pages in newspaper archives systematically each day exactly 50 years ago. And I only write stories when I find something so compelling, so exciting, that I just have to share it with you. And in this first episode, I would like to share a story that met that criteria. It takes place exactly 50 years ago this past weekend at the 1973 Belmont Stakes. I called it the Obliteration at the Belmont. Now, most of my articles will start out with an introduction from the Sports Time Traveler, writing as though I'm back in the present time, and then introducing the article I'm going to begin with. So here is the intro from the Obliteration at the Belmont. The late afternoon of June 9th, 1973, was dry and warm in New York. Two horses were preparing to meet for their final epic battle in the Belmont Stakes. Secretariat would have a chance to win the coveted Triple Crown, a feat that had not been accomplished in 25 years, and some said might never be done again. To win the Triple Crown, Secretariat would have to defeat his worthy rival Sham for the third consecutive time. Sham had finished narrowly behind Secretariat in both the Kentucky Derby and the Preakness. Despite being a heavy favorite, victory was still in doubt for Secretariat because Sham had beaten Secretariat convincingly in their last meeting in New York 2 months earlier in the Wood Memorial at Aqueduct. In his second place finish in the Kentucky Derby, Sham had run the second fastest time in the 99-year history of the event. Now Sham could even the score at 2-2 with Secretariat with a win today and etch his name in the record books as a winner of the prestigious Belmont Stakes. On the same afternoon, 10 miles to the west at Shea Stadium, the New York Mets were holding an old-timers day, retiring the number of Gil Hodges and starting Willie Mays for the first time in Shea Stadium in a month as they took on the Dodgers. This was a must-see day in New York sports, for which the Sports Time Traveler just had to travel virtually back to catch both of these events. This article covers the Belmont Stakes. A separate article has covered the events at Shea Stadium from earlier that afternoon. And now, the Obliteration at the Belmont. New York, June 10th, 1973. I've traveled virtually back in time to cover the 1973 Belmont Stakes. Only 5 horses were at the gate for the start of the race yesterday. That's because the dominance of Secretariat in the first 2 legs of the Triple Crown had diminished the hopes of nearly all 3-year-old thoroughbreds in this 1.5-mile race, the longest of the Triple Crown runs. At race time, here were the post positions and odds. Post position 1, Secretariat, odds 1-10. Post position 2, Private Smiles, odds 9-1. Post position 3, My Gallant, odds 6-1. Post position 5, Twice a Prince, odds 7-1. Post position 6, Sham, odds 5-1. Nightly Dawn, the horse that would have been in the 4th position, was a late scratch in the race. Nightly Dawn was originally entered by Sham's trainer, Pancho Martin, as a rabbit to push the pace. But when it became apparent in the morning that the track would be fast, Martin pulled the horse from the race. Secretariat was such a prohibitive favorite with 1-10 odds that a bet of $2 would only return $2.20 if he won. The 1973 Belmont Stakes can be watched on a video that I have posted in the article. So if you look at my newsletter article, you will see that video. You can also look in YouTube and just Google Belmont Stakes 1973 to find one of many videos of the race. And now here's my commentary on the race. The start. At the start, all the horses got out of the gate cleanly. My Gallant went into the very early lead. Then Sham quickly moved up on the far outside and took over. Secretariat seemed to be holding back a little at the outset and was initially in fourth place on the inside. Then, taking advantage of a clear path along the rail, Secretariat steadily moved up until he was in front by the first quarter-mile pole, just ahead of Sham. At the quarter mile, it was Secretariat in first, Sham in second, all the other horses at least 5 lengths back. The time was 23.6 seconds. Secretariat had come through the quarter mile nearly 2 seconds faster than his record-setting pace at the Kentucky Derby, and Sham was right with him. Then, almost inconceivably, Sham increased the pace and nosed ahead of Secretariat. The two great horses were now stunningly clear of the rest of the field as they neared the half-mile mark. On the video, see the gap between Sham and Secretariat at the 46-second mark. Just before the half-mile, Secretariat took a tiny lead as the horses were literally running neck and neck. The standings at the half-mile: first, Secretariat; second, Sham; all others 10 lengths back. The time, 46.2 seconds. The second quarter mile had been run in an unbelievable 22.6, and the two horses both were under the old first half-mile record for the race. Both horses continued running strong, but at the 1-minute mark on the video, at about the 5-furlong pole, Secretariat starts to slowly inch ahead. And at the 1:15 mark on the video, around 6 furlongs, which is 3/4 of a mile, Sham appears to start to tire. By the 1:27 mark on the video, the race announcer, Chick Anderson, says Secretariat has a 3-length lead. Watching the video, it is apparent that the lead is continuing to widen. At the mile mark, Secretariat is running strong, and Sham, while still in the picture, has begun to reach the point where he is hopelessly behind. At the mile mark, it's Secretariat in first by 7 lengths, Sham second, and all others at least 7 lengths further back. The time for the mile was 1:34.2. Secretariat's mile time was nearly 2 seconds ahead of his Kentucky Derby pace, and he was all alone and still full of steam. He was also a full second ahead of the fastest pace in Belmont history at the mile. That record belonged to his sire, Bold Ruler. But when Bold Ruler had set the mile record in 1957, he tired in the final half mile and finished third. So exhausted was Bold Ruler after that 1957 Belmont Stakes that his handlers had trouble getting him into the unsaddling area. Now, Secretariat was nearing uncharted territory. He had never run a race of 1.5 miles in length. Could he maintain the blistering pace for the final half mile, or might he falter like his father had done? He showed no signs of slowing. At the 1:45 mark on the video, you can hear the track announcer Chick Anderson cry, "He is moving like a tremendous machine. Secretariat by 12, Secretariat by 14 lengths. By 1.25 miles, Secretariat's lead reaches an incomprehensible 20 lengths. Meanwhile, Sham begins to fade badly, clearly out of gas. He falls to 4th place as the field catches and passes him. At 1.25 miles, it's Secretariat first by 20 lengths. Second, Twice a Prince. Third, My Gallant. Fourth, Sham. The time, 1 minute 59 seconds. Secretariat has run the distance now of the Kentucky Derby, 1.25 miles, nearly 3/4 of a second faster than his winning performance at the Derby, and he still has a 1/4 mile to go. His most recent 1/4 mile in 24.8 seconds shows he has no signs of letting up. As Secretariat enters the top of the home stretch at the 2:11 mark on the video, the lead he has on the field is stunning. It's so large, it's difficult to estimate just how far in front he is. Chick Anderson says on the video, he's into the stretch, Secretariat leads this field by 18 lengths. Down the stretch, Secretariat continues to charge. His lead increases further. Anderson yells. Secretariat opens up a 22-length lead. He is going to be the Triple Crown winner. By the 2:26 mark on the tape, the lead is so large that the camera's wide-open view of the stretch doesn't show any other horses besides Secretariat. He charges right through the finish line in a final time of 2:24. Secretariat has obliterated the record by 2.6 seconds and crushed the field by 31 lengths. Not only did he set a Belmont Stakes record and a Belmont track record, but it was also an American record on any dirt track. In the most convincing fashion possible, Secretariat has become the first horse since Citation in 1948 to win the Triple Crown. His time would have beaten Citation by 21 lengths, according to Ross Newhan of the Los Angeles Times. Final results at 1.5 miles. First, Secretariat by 31 lengths, time 2:24, new American record. Second, Twice a Prince. Third, My Gallant. Fourth, Private Smiles. Fifth and last, Sham. Time, 1 minute, 59 seconds. That was the mile time. A super equine achievement. The magnitude of the performance by Secretariat was so profound that sports writers had to create new superlatives to describe what they had seen. Joe Nichols of the New York Times called it a super equine achievement. Steve Cady of the New York Times wrote, "It was the kind of unbelievable performance that sent seasoned horsemen babbling incoherently into radio and television microphones. On all sides, owners, trainers, and governors were saying the 2:24 Belmont was the greatest effort in racing they had ever seen." Gene Ward of the New York Daily News called Secretariat the perfect horse, like a winged Pegasus reincarnated from the mists of mythology. What no one wrote at the time, but might be said in the 21st century, is that Secretariat established himself on this day as the GOAT, the greatest of all time. Secretariat's jockey's perspective. Jockey Ron Turcotte was quick to note to the New York Times, "I never hit him once. I let him run his own way." Later he added, "This horse really paced himself. He is smart. I think he knew he was going 1.5 miles. I never pushed him." In another interview with the Daily News, Turcotte did reveal he pushed Secretariat just once near the end. "I saw that 159 at 1.25 miles and knew he had a real good chance for the record. With 70 yards to go, I pushed him a little." Sham's performance explained. Sham faded badly before the first mile mark and finished last in the race. Sham's jockey, Lafitte Pincay, explained what happened to Sham in the race. "I was following the trainer's instructions of trying to go to the front, but I couldn't get in front. My horse just didn't run the first mile, and I never could get him to. I didn't use him in the stretch because I didn't want to abuse him. He was not the same horse that ran in the Derby or the Preakness." Jim McCulley of the New York Daily News delivered a great insight when he said that Sham had the tough luck of being born in the same year as Secretariat. And as I often do in a lot of my articles, I have a little postscript writing again from the present at the very end. Postscript from the Sports Time Traveler. 50 years later, Secretariat's record of 2:24 still stands as the American record on a dirt track for 1.5 miles. Wikipedia cites several sources in stating that Secretariat's race in the 1973 Belmont Stakes is, quote, widely considered the greatest performance of the 20th century by a North American racehorse. In an interesting side note, the 7th race on the card at Belmont Park that same day was won by an impressive 9 lengths by another 3-year-old horse named Forgo. Forgo had finished 4th in the Kentucky Derby and was not run in the Preakness or the Belmont Stakes. Forgo won 9 of his 18 starts in 1973. Then he went on to become one of the great racehorses in history. While Secretariat was retired after 1973, Forgo continued to race and was named the Horse of the Year in 1974, 1975, and 1976. Well, that concludes this episode 1 of the Sports Time Traveler. I would love to hear your feedback. Thank you very much. Goodbye for now.